Well, thank you for joining me today for the Sunday school lesson. I'm so glad that we can get together these times together and let me teach you what I know and you teach me, that you're watching and you're thanking God for all that your church is doing in terms of trying to keep in touch with its constituency through the Bible. Now today's lesson is going to come from chapter 4, verses 35 through chapter 6, verse 6. It's an impossible task, but we're going to try to do it. Just reading that much is going to be difficult. And we're talking about Jesus and what he's done. So this has to do with miracles and rejection. Now you'd think that doing miracles would automatically allow you to be received. We're going to see it's not so with our Lord. So chapter 4, beginning with verse 35. Chapter 4, verse 35. And the same day, when the evening was come, he said unto them, Let's pass over to the other side. And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship. And there were also with him other little ships. There arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship, so that it was now full. And he was in the hinder part, asleep on a pillow. They awake him and say, Master, carest thou not that we perish? He arose, rebuked the wind, and said unto the sea, Peace be still. The wind ceased, there was great calm. And he said unto them, Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? And they feared exceedingly, and said one to another, What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Now, I'm told that on the Sea of Galilee, and I've been on the Sea of Galilee twice, it's probably my favorite place in the Bible lands, because you go one place in Jerusalem in particular. Jesus could have been buried here. He could have been buried here. I prefer Gordon's Calvary as the place of burial. Golgotha could have been here. It could have been here. Well, when you get to the Sea of Galilee, there it is. It's not going to change. And they still fish the Sea of Galilee in the same way that they fished in the day of the Lord. That's net fishing, throwing out the net, pulling in the fish. I love the Sea of Galilee. But they say that it's notorious for storms to come without any prelude whatsoever. Just come and be an atrocious storm. That's what happens here. I mean, it's a big blow when it comes. It's a big blow. And here's Jesus, and he's going to tell the storm to stop. Going to tell the waves to cease. So he gets up. I think it might have been, Jesus said, Hush. Stop. No matter what he said, the winds and the waves obeyed him. Now, why would we be interested in that story? Well, I consulted some commentaries, and I found out that most of them take an attitude toward it because we too go through storms that suddenly come up. I was through one not long ago. I don't know whether you knew it or not. I had preached at a church on Sunday, had a great time, church 150 195 years old. Known the folks, been there a number of times across the years. Just a wonderful experience. Had great food after, as you always do in these country churches. Great food. I had such a good time, and on the way home, I started feeling just a little queasy. I thought, well, I just ate too much good food. And when I realized it was more than that, on Tuesday, I realized I was sicker than I thought. And I went to the emergency room. They did a CAT scan and said, you need surgery immediately. Well, I was absolutely surprised, shocked, no forewarning. 2 days of sickness is all I had. That's forewarning. I was absolutely surprised. Well, they couldn't get a team together to do surgery on Tuesday night, so at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, I had some major surgery. No forewarning whatsoever. I was getting stronger. I'd just gone through the heart thing and all of that, and just suddenly, there it was. So when he talks about a storm, I was in a storm. I had to cancel things. I had to do things differently. I was in a storm. Jesus said, peace, be still. I want you to know that in all of that, I never stopped feeling the presence of the Father. Not one time. Not one time. I didn't say, why me, Lord? Not one time. I just knew. In fact, I've made it a practice, if I'm going to have surgery, that before they put the cap on my face, I put my hand over my face. And I say to them, before you put me to sleep, we're going to pray. And I pray with the doctors and nurses around me. And then I'm ready. Now, that doesn't make me holy or sanctified. That's just what I do. So, I weathered the storm, and the calm came. I know what they're talking about. They were scared to death. Would you not be scared to death if you were in a boat that was getting ready to go under? Of course you would. But don't forget, in the storm, Jesus walks and changes things. In the storm. The same, by the way, this was interesting to me. The same words that Jesus uses for the demon-possessed man in chapter 1 of Mark is the same words he uses to hush the sea. That's interesting to me. Peace in the storm. Peace from problems. Everybody has problems of some kind. You cannot allow your circumstances or your problems to dictate your demeanor. You must allow Jesus to dictate in the midst of problems or anxiety. The chief enemy of peace is anxiety. And when you live with anxiety day after day after day, it suddenly wears on you. And you need to understand, the more you become anxious about things, the more you become anxious about things, and you simply need to come to Jesus and have peace that passes all understanding. So here in the midst of the storm, they find peace in the midst of the storm. Well, now turn to Mark chapter 5. Mark chapter 5. In Mark chapter 5, verse 1, and they came over unto the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gadarenes. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs. No man could bind him, no, not even with chains. He had been often bound with fetters and chains, and they plucked asunder by him. The fetters broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying, cutting himself with stones. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him, cried with a loud voice and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not. He said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. He asked him, What is thy name? He said, My name is Legion, for we are many. And he besought how much he would send them away. And there was let's wait and get to the herd of swine just a little later. Here's Jesus dealing with this man who is demon possessed. And he says, I feel like my name is Legion. Now, a legion was an army of 6,000 people. I think this simply is one of those times when the man is saying, I am totally possessed with demons. I'm totally. Now, whether there were 6,000 demons or not, I don't have any way of knowing. I doubt there were that many. This man cried and cut himself with stones. And as a result, Jesus came, cast out the demons. Now, when he cast out the demons, it's the most interesting thing. I have to confess to you, I can't wrap my mind around it. The demons said, or the man said to Jesus, the demons, Legion said, send us into the swine. Send us into that herd of pigs that are on the edge. And Jesus said, come out of him. They went into the pigs, went over the mountain, drowned in the sea. Now here's a whole herd of swine. I don't know how many. I have no idea. But those who were tending the swine knew they had a problem on their hands. They had a problem because they were immediately going to go and tell the owner of the swine what had happened. Now, that's a far-fetched concept that demons could come out of a man and destroy a herd of swine. But he did. That's what happened. Now, I'm not going to try to spiritualize it. I believe that's what happened. Now, when they come back, it's an interesting thing. They don't rejoice. Here is a man who had been living in the caves, a man who had been cutting himself with rocks, a man who yelled every single night of his life, a man who was in torment. And when they come, here he is, clothed and in his right mind. No one of them rejoiced over him. That's strange to me. That is really strange to me. They knew who he was. Here he is, clothed and in his right mind. And they don't rejoice. You know what happens? They tell Jesus, please leave. Please leave. Don't come back. Please leave. Now, I had to ask myself the question, why would they want Jesus to leave? I jotted down 3 things that I think happened. 1, he had disturbed their comfort zone. They didn't know how to explain it. All they knew is their pigs were dead. They were not comfortable with the work of Jesus. They were not comfortable with the fact that he healed a man with a legion of demons. They were not comfortable. Don't disturb my comfort zone. Leave it the way it is. Now, for those of you who have that attitude, let me tell you something. Your comfort zone is going to be disturbed. Eventually, you'll have to deal with it. Your comfort zone is not going to last as it is forever. Circumstances change. It's just how radically and how rapidly they change. So they were saying to Jesus, you've disturbed our comfort. You can't stay here. Secondly, you've destroyed our possessions. This is a whole herd. Do you remember? Do you know how much money we had involved in this herd of swine? Do you understand how much we have lost as a result of your healing this man? People get finicky about their possessions. And I'm not advocating that we be nonchalant about what God has entrusted us to be good stewards of. I'm not talking about that. I know that the possessions you have, you either inherited or you earned, one of the two. That's the way it is. But those possessions that we have should not possess us. We should possess them, not them us. Don't build your life around a possession. It could be taken at any time. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job, primary example, Job. So, here it said, don't mess with our possessions. And I think, don't mess with our religious life. We like it the way it is. Don't come, Jesus, and change it. Don't come and change it. We are all subject to unpleasant experiences. And sometimes it's our faith, and only our faith, that sees us through those experiences. Well, I need to hasten on. Jesus, in casting out the demons of the man from Gadara, shows us that he has the power, no matter how many, whether it's a demon or legion, doesn't matter. Jesus has the power to heal us if we are possessed by a demon. Now, that's hard for us to understand in the society in which we live, but it was not hard for these people to understand. They saw demons everywhere. Now, the next piece of scripture has to do with Jairus and his daughter, who was on the verge of dying. So, Jesus is going to respond to this. So look in chapter 5, beginning at verse 21. And Jesus passed over to the other side. Behold, there comes one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. When he saw him, he fell at his feet. He besought him greatly, saying, My daughter lies at the point of death. Come, I pray thee, come, lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she may live. Jesus went with him. Much people followed him and thronged. Now, he's going to take care of the daughter of Jairus. He was a very prominent man. The ruler of the synagogue had to do with the administration, not the synagogue itself so much as being sure that everything was in place, ready to go at the time. They simply were administrators. Now, you learn one great lesson here that I had to learn sometimes the hard way. You do not solve spiritual problems by administration. You solve spiritual problems by faith. You do not solve administrative problems by faith. You solve administrative problems by administration. Now, that is not to imply that you do not pray over your administrative responsibilities. But I'm telling you, if all you do is pray about administrative responsibilities, things will get worse rather than better. If you have an administrative problem, you need to take care of it administratively. If you have a spiritual problem, you need to take care of it spiritually. Now, the spiritual problem can be handled only by faith. And so here is Jairus, a great administrator, but he cannot solve this problem. He falls down at the feet of Jesus. Now, here's a man of great dignity. He gives up his dignity in behalf of his daughter. It doesn't matter to me what people think. It doesn't matter to me that I'm falling down on my face, worshiping Jesus. It doesn't matter. I'm not trying to be popular. I'm trying to be honest with God. I want my daughter to live. And so here's a man who is willing to give up his dignity in order for his daughter to live. Now, in the interlude, there's an interesting thing that happens. Now, remember, Jesus is on his way to heal the daughter of Jairus. Look at verse 25. A certain woman, which had an issue of blood for 12 years, suffered many things of many physicians, spent all that she had, and was no better, but grew worse. When she heard that Jesus came, when she heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway, it's one of Mark's favorite words, immediately, straightway, uses it 30 or 40 times in the gospel. And straightway, quickly, and straightway, the fountain of her blood was dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned about in the press and said, who touched my clothes? His disciples said unto him, Lord, don't you see the multitude thronging you, and you ask, who touched me? He looked around about to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told the truth, and said, he said, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace, be whole of the plague. Now this is an interesting interlude. Here's this woman. Now, catch the scenarios again. Here's Jesus having just caused the demons to go out of a man into a herd of swine. Now he's on his way to heal the daughter of Jairus. In the interlude of on his way, this woman touches the hem of his garment, or touches his clothing, and is healed. Isn't that amazing? Jesus trying to show us, I have the power over a legion of demons. I have the power over one person who is sick and has been for a long time. Spent all of her money on doctors. No healing. No healing. And Jesus said, your faith has made you whole. Well, the story runs, Jesus goes and comes to the place and heals, raises the daughter of Jairus really from the dead. and said she's been sleeping. Give her something to eat. Give her something to eat. Here's a little girl, by the way, at the age of becoming a woman in Jewish terminology. Here's a little girl who says, Jesus says, give her something to eat. Over one person or a multitude. Well, the last thing I just have to say, Jesus goes back in Mark chapter 6 to his hometown. And his hometown, not kind to him. He's unable to do much work there. He's unable to minister. I asked myself why. Well, they knew who he was. They knew his background. Isn't this the son of Mary? Now, two things may be involved there. It may be showing us that Joseph is dead, because normally this is the son of Joseph. Isn't this the son of Mary? And might have cast a bit of reflection on everyone was confused about Mary's pregnancy. What had happened here? Is this a cover-up? Plus the fact they had seen him grow up as a boy. His background. I don't know why. I remember the first time I went back to my hometown after I'd started preaching. I don't know why. I felt so at home. Maybe they remember too much about me when I was a boy. Whatever. Here I am, and thanking God for it. Now, don't be too quick to form opinions about people. Don't be too quick. You may be wrong. I've seen it happen more times than one. Thank you for joining me for the Sunday school lesson today. God bless you. Thank God for his power in Jesus Christ.